It is an honor this morning to introduce Flynt Leverett, who served at the National Security Council, the State Department, and the CIA. But he's currently a professor at Penn State out of Carlisle. Also with him is Hillary Mann Leverett, and she served at the National Security Council and the State Department. She negotiated the U.S. government with Iranian officials. She is now a senior professor lecturer at American University in Washington. Their writing has appeared in the New York Times, Politico, Foreign Policy, and Washington Monthly, among others. They came to us last night from Virginia. They took the late night train and stayed here. And what I'd like to do is just turn it over to you for your thoughts and comments to start off.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to start off for us today. And first, let me begin by thanking you very much for hosting us. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's a real honor and pleasure. We look forward to a very interesting discussion today. I'm going to start with two provocative themes from our new book, Going to Tehran, Why the United States Must Come to Terms with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The first of these themes, and these two really get at the heart of our book, the first of these themes is that the United States is today and has been for the past few years a power in relative decline in the Middle East. And the second core theme is that the biggest beneficiary of America's ongoing decline in the Middle East is the Islamic Republic of Iran. If you're not sure you agree with these propositions, I want to ask you to compare the relative positions of the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran in the Middle East today with where they were on the eve of 9/11 just over 10 years ago. On the eve of 9/11, every single government in the Middle East was either pro-American, like the governments in Egypt and Turkey, in negotiations effectively to become pro-American, like the governments in Syria and Libya, or anti-Iranian, like the Taliban government in Afghanistan and Saddam Hussein's government in Iraq. Every single government in the Middle East was either pro-American in negotiations to become pro-American or anti-Iranian, a pretty good position for the United States in the Middle East. But because of elections, today, governments across the Middle East, in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Lebanon, Palestine, Turkey, Iraq, they are all no longer reflexively pro-American or anti-Iranian. They are all pursuing at least independent foreign policies, which are by definition much less enthusiastic about strategic cooperation with the United States and much more open to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Simply put, today, relatively speaking, the United States is in a profoundly weaker position in the Middle East, and the Islamic Republic of Iran is in a significantly stronger position. This has essentially happened because there has been a dramatic shift in the Middle East's balance of power. In our book, Going to Tehran, we describe how part of why this shift has and is occurring is because of mistakes in American policies in the Middle East. But we also describe in our book that part of what is going on is something vastly underappreciated in the West, which are the successes of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which are also driving this shift in the regional balance of power. We argue in our book that these two are inextricably linked, the American policy mistakes and the successes that the Islamic Republic is driving, that they are linked, and that it is in fact America's dysfunctional policy toward the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is at the heart of our decline in the Middle East. We also argue that it will take strategic realignment by the United States with the Islamic Republic of Iran to enable America's strategic recovery in the Middle East. We unpack these arguments first by examining the bases for U.S. dominance in the Middle East, something increasingly driven since the end of the Cold War by America's unique capability to project enormous amounts of conventional military force into the Middle East. No one else, not even China, can project this kind of military force into the Middle East today or for years to come. This muscle has given the United States extraordinary economic and political influence in the Middle East, and in fact has reinforced our military and economic dominance in other key parts of the world. But our failures in Afghanistan and Iraq in particular have underscored for the world, and especially for Middle Eastern publics, the limits of what American military might can accomplish. We argue in our book that these failures in U.S. Middle East policy were not just idiosyncratic, ideologically generated products of the George W. Bush administration. As we describe in our book, these stem from a much deeper source that cuts across both Democratic and Republican administrations, and it's something we describe as the United States essentially giving in to a post-Cold War temptation to act as an imperial power in the Middle East. And it is this imperial turn in America's Middle East policies, pursued with very little regard for realities on the ground in the Middle East, that has proven not just quixotic, but deeply damaging to American interests. As a candidate back in 2008, now President Obama then seemed to really understand this. He talked about it courageously during the campaign. He pledged, in fact, to not just withdraw American troops from Iraq, but to change what he called the American mindset that had gotten us into the strategic mistake of invading Iraq in the first place. He pledged to really change America's Middle East policies. But instead, the Obama administration has pursued the same sorts of policies as its predecessors, the same policies that did such damage to America's strategic position. As a result, for example, the Obama administration today is not just presiding over a stalled Middle East peace process, it is presiding over the very demise of a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And while the Obama administration's military intervention in Libya was able to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi, it is now incubating in Libya a significant threat to American security interests. And as we detail in our book, Going to Tehran, the Obama administration has gone beyond the Bush administration in threatening the Islamic Republic to doing something we argue is even more dangerous, to actually discrediting engagement as a strategy for dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran. They've done so by saying that they've tried to reach out to the Islamic Republic of Iran and failed, and therefore engagement is perhaps a fool's errand. The results of these policies are that on President Obama's watch, the Middle East's balance of power has shifted even further away from the United States and its allies than it was at the end of the George W. Bush administration. This brings me to another critically important part of our book, which is how the Islamic Republic of Iran has become the biggest beneficiary of American mistakes and our ongoing decline in the Middle East. In our book, we lay out how by pursuing a foreign policy and building a domestic political order that actually attracts Middle Eastern publics, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been able to take advantage of American mistakes to improve its own position dramatically. The key to the Islamic Republic's successes has been that beyond the shift in the Middle East regional distribution of power, who has power in the Middle East, as I detailed earlier, something even more important is happening, and that is that the Middle East balance of power itself is changing. It is now becoming increasingly less defined by hard military capabilities, where the United States has the clear advantage, and the Islamic Republic of Iran is relatively deficient, and more defined in terms of a balance of influence, where the Islamic Republic of Iran has real, unique advantages. As we explain in our book, the Islamic Republic is both encouraging and taking advantage of this very important transformation in the Middle East. One of the most remarkable things about this shift in the Middle East balance of power over the last decade, away